Welcome to Public Forum, a community outreach program produced at North Idaho College on the shores of Lake Coeur d'Alene. Featuring guests from around the globe addressing a wide variety of subjects, Public Forum serves to educate and enlighten. Please join host and moderator, political scientist Tony Stewart, in welcoming today's guest.
Welcome to our 9th program in our long series celebrating the 25th anniversary of the Kootenai County Task Force on Human Relations and its work for human rights. We started the year 2002 on a very difficult note. Our good people of Idaho were criticized in a TV program called ER and also on the Geraldo Rivero show. In fact, the ER program said that you could move to the white supremacist part of the state, North Idaho, and also on the other program, we were very, very offended by Geraldo Rivero's comment about Hayden Lake, said that the residents there would be considering Timothy McVeigh a hero, which was obviously untrue. We responded very strongly to that, and Marshall, would you kindly tell us how you reacted? You were one of the people in our task force that reacted.
Well, we contacted Geraldo, so we didn't get to talk to Geraldo, but he still owes us an apology. Not only does he owe us an apology, he owes the people of Coeur d'Alene and the people of Idaho an apology. He defamed our entire area, and what he did was, by saying what he did, he was helping to promote the Aryan nations and that movement in this area. He was way off base.
With that, then we moved in also further into January for the 17th annual Martin Luther King Children's Program. We keep doing that, and it's a very, very important part of our work. And then, as always, in January 2002, we had our wonderful gala event that's put on by our president, Deanna Gissel. And Lucy, tell us a little bit about that.
It was a wonderful event. It was held at the Clark House in Hayden, and Deanna puts effort into this every year. She's practically a one-woman show. It gets lots of volunteers at the very end, but it takes months and months to put it together, and it's always a wonderful success.
With a great variety of people.
With a great variety of people, and it's a great time for our supporters to get together and break some bread.
And then another big story that happened in 2002 that's affected by the task force. Our good friend Greg Carr returned to Idaho from his home in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and gave $1 million to what's become known now as the Human Rights Education Institute for a Human Rights Center in Coeur d'Alene. He gave $25,000 to the University of Idaho for a speaker's chair, and he gave the Peace Park to North Idaho College, and then he gave an 11-foot, 3,200-pound human rights monument to the city of Coeur d'Alene. He is our wonderful friend, and that happened on January the 21st in 2002. And it's still and will continue to have great dividends. Then Marshall, we'll come back to you. Marshall Mind is one of our task force board members, been on the other programs, and we're talking about civil rights awards. And Award for Courage was a wonderful business lady in Coeur d'Alene got one of our awards.
And she deserved it. She had she is a manager, general manager of a title company here, a local title company, North Idaho Title. And she had somebody that was closing a transaction there, and she had one of our signs that says, Idaho, the human rights state. And the person came in there, was a racist, and he said that he wanted that sign removed or he would not do business with him. And she reluctantly took the sign down, was very intimidated by the man. And she thought about it that night, and she got very upset that she had taken the sign down. And she called her boss, told her boss that she was going to put it back up, and her boss says, you put it back up.
Yeah. And
she put it back up, and she took a stand, and she called him and told them.
We have to go on, but we gave her an award for courage. Her name is Michelle Fink.
Okay, and it was a lot of courage that she had to do that.
Then we moved to the 5th annual Human Rights Banquet, which was held in April of 2002, and at that banquet, we had a very, very emotional and powerful speaker that had grown up in Iran. Lucy, tell us about that.
Yes, another wonderful banquet. Parvin Norabi, writer and lecturer and human rights activist, came to our banquet and spoke, and she talked about the oppression of women in Muslim society, in many Muslim societies, that some of the things they're required to do are fast for a month, pray 17 times a day, and they can be executed if they don't meet this criteria.
And she really was speaking to the issue of oppressed women in the world. It was our banquets are very powerful, as we've seen on other programs. And then Dr. Michael Burke, the president of our college, in that year went and spoke to the legislature in Idaho, and his thesis was that North Idaho is working for human rights and that we're all together and supporting this college is deeply involved. And that was another important moment for our work through Dr. Burke. Then Norm Gissel, I guess first of all before we go to that, because it was in May 2002. Marshall, you were responsible for bringing in a very good speaker that was a survivor of the Holocaust to North Idaho College and the task force to co-sponsor.
Right. And his name was Vernon Rushin. And Vernon was a Holocaust survivor, and he had a great story to tell. He talked about demonizing and dehumanizing of human beings and what the Nazis did. And he felt that the First Amendment here protects that kind of speech, and he felt that the First Amendment shouldn't. And he had a real good argument for that.
Okay.
Worth listening to.
Yes. Thank you, and thank you for bringing him here. And all the people on the program today are board members of the Kootenai County Task Force on Human Relations. And Norm Gessel will go next. He's been on all these programs and as an attorney that won the case against the Aryan Nations. And Norm, you and Marshall Mind and I were invited to a 7-day tour in Pennsylvania. It's one of the highlights of my life between July 27th and August the 4th, 2002. Share what that was all about.
Here we were, three civil rights activists from Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, going to the cradle of democracy, Pennsylvania, and giving talks for 7 days throughout Pennsylvania. We started in Pittsburgh and went all the way to Boyerstown. And it was wonderful receptions at every stop. And we spoke from our hearts to their hearts. We started out as strangers and ended up in friends at every town that we stopped
And we
at.
still have those friends. And
Absolutely.
we started at the University of Pittsburgh, our first speech, and everywhere we went, they had great planned programs and meals and the media. So we got to tour the entire state of Pennsylvania to talk about what we love, and that's human rights. Following that, in August of 2002, then I had the pleasure, after I'd spoken earlier to the presidents of the National Institute of Community College Presidents, I was invited to a 4-day tour of Gainesville, Florida, and had the same kind of reaction. And at one of the gatherings, I spoke to all the employees at a community college of over 700. And again, it was so energizing to talk with other people who believe in what you believe in. And then Father Roger LaChance, who is the pastor of St. Pius Catholic Church and on our board and representing the religious community, we have to pause to talk about something that was incredibly sad and tragic in our lives in the year 2002, and that was the death of the former president of the task force, a former pastor at St. Pius, and had been head of the director of the Northwest Coalition, died of Lou Gehrig's disease, our good friend, Father Bill Wassman.
Bill and I were classmates. We started out seminary in 1955 together. I don't know if you know that, but so we were contemporaneous all through our ministry. And it was sort of ironic that, we started out together. He was pastor of St. Pius, and then I succeeded him, well, not immediately, but one between. And it was my privilege to preach at his funeral mass that we had at our place.
Tell us about what he was like.
Oh, Bill was charismatic. Just a marvelous laugh, marvelous sense of humor, very insightful, just very, very sharp, to the point. A man who just, he had a lot of bumps and bruises during life, and he learned from them. And he I think, had a tremendous compassion for people.
Yes.
And I think that's one of the great things about him, of course, was that he made the world a better place to live in. That was his goal.
He impacted even nationally.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Thank you so much. Yeah, he's greatly missed, but his work goes on.
Amen.
And through people like you. Then, Father Roger, David Oliveira of the Spokesman Review was able to do an article on October 28, 2002, and in that article he talked about Timothy K. Beale of the Washington Post did an article in October 2002 praising our organization, Greg Carr, for turning the compound into Peace Park, and then I was asked, and we agreed to let religious leaders of different faiths from Spokane and Kootenai go up and bless the land, and it was recognized in the Washington Post. As a religious leader, tell us the importance of that.
Well, when you bless something, you're dedicating it, you're setting it aside for good works. And what a tremendous irony it was. We had a hate center now converted and now blessed for Peace Park. So to consecrate, to dedicate, to use it for good purposes is what a blessing's all about.
And they said they thought they could help purify it by getting rid of the evil. Then we moved to the year 2003, and we started out again with our great children's program, the Dr. Martin Luther King Children's Program with the Post Falls and Coeur d'Alene School District, our 18th such program, and that year it was called Peaceful Works of Heart on January the 17th. And Patrick Dunning was our presenter, and the Human Rights Education Institute pays along with the school districts to bring someone in, and Mr. Dunning had a remarkable project where he had about 1,100,000 signatures that turned into a remarkable design that you've seen up on your screen, and we found that to be a great thing for the children, for all of us. We all got to sign it, and so we're all in that part of history. And then again in 2003, Deanna Gitzel comes forward with another annual gala event on January the 20th, and again it was a great success, and we appreciated that. We have up on the screen now some shots from the media covering our gala event. And we see people we don't see but once a year at that event. And then we had our 6th annual Human Rights Banquet, and our speaker was the CEO of Safeco Insurance Corporation, Mike McGavick. He is really a leader in diversity, and at that banquet he talked about the role of the business community, what they must do and what the right thing to do was concerning being a leader in diversity. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been able to capture some video from that particular banquet, and at this time we will share a brief segment of his thoughts about the world of diversity through corporations.
We are reminded yet again that the dead end of the road of hatred is violence. And so we gather burdened by 2 great challenges. Challenges that have plagued humankind for its entire existence. How shall we get beyond ancient hatreds? Hatreds that divide groups of humans from one another and thereby threaten and fail our very humanity. And then second, and in fact I believe it is what we must overcome first, how can we learn to talk civilly to one another despite our different beliefs? For stereotype and caricature and demagoguery are the violence in words and images that give permission to the physical violence we watch. We gather in remarkable times, facing together those burdens, facing together these great challenges.
I apologize to our viewers, there's a little audio problem, but you still got his message, which was a very, very powerful one, and he's a leader in the corporation world for dealing with diversity. Then something happened that was really the exclamation point for the people of Hayden, Idaho. That's where the advertising had always been about that the compound was located near Hayden. And Richard Butler decided to run for mayor in 2003 along with 2 of his cohorts for the city council, and Marshall Min was deeply involved, and Norm Gissel helped, and others, to work with the people of Hayden and asked them to turn out in great numbers to say a final no to the hate. And I can say before they speak that it was the largest voter turnout in the history of Hayden, and it was, I think that year, the largest voter turnout on a percentage basis of any city in the state. Marshall, we'll start with you to talk about how important that was that the voters make that very important statement.
It was real important. We had Nazis trying to take over our city. You had Richard Butler running for mayor. You had 2 other Nazis running for city council, and we had to take a stand. And we took a stand. We had a...
we're in a hurry. We're going to have to go fast. So the fact is he only got 50 votes out of almost 2,200. What does that say?
He got less than 50 out of 2,200. It says a lot. And not only that, we had over 50% voter turnout, and which in the off year is tremendous in any year.
Yeah. Norm, would you like to add to that?
Right, it was Hayden and Kootenai County, but particularly Hayden, had been vilified in the national media for over 20 years. And this was their first opportunity as citizens of Hayden, citizens of Idaho, and citizens of the United States to make their feelings known. And it was not only a repudiation of Richard Butler and his beliefs, but it was a repudiation of the distortions by the national media that had been present for so many years.
Now we moved to the year 2004, and we started out again with our great Martin Luther King Children's Program. It was the 19th program, and it was held on January the 16th. Then I was called by the Post Fall School District, and we went there to help those wonderful high school students reestablish their Human Rights Club, and they've been doing that ever since 2004. And I was very impressed with their commitment and dedication to doing that. And then we move into the spring of 2004, and we have now our 7th annual Human Rights Banquet. It was on March 26th, and our speaker that came to us was a United States Senator from Idaho, Senator Crapo, and our topic that year was celebrating Canadian-American friendship, and he is the chair of the U.S. Senate Subcommittee on American-Canadian Friendship, and we do have an excerpt from his speech at the banquet.
Obviously, no one should be engaged in acts of violence. And I assume that the vast majority, and hopefully all of the men in this room, are not in that category. But we as men need to be speaking out louder and standing up stronger and telling the other men in our society that that kind of behavior will not be tolerated, will be stopped, and will be punished. I guess I just really want to say that we have an incredibly good record in Idaho. We are a people who are committed to these kinds of things. And I just encourage us all to redouble our efforts, to look at our society and see where there are still problems, and then stand solidly, like you all are, in a strong united front to protect the weakest among us, those who need our help the most. And thank you very much for having me here with you tonight.
Ladies and gentlemen, a lot of his speech was about the friendship of Canadian Americans, but he asked me if it would be appropriate to deviate from his speech to talk about abuses against children. He had seen some recently that troubled him deeply, and so that part of the segment was about a very emotional moment that was well received by the audience, to how we must protect individuals from violence, in particular children. Then Norm Gissel on our board again. Something else happened in September on the 8th of 2004. It was the death of Richard Butler.
Right, and this was the press saw the symbolism of the end of the Aryans, which had actually occurred several years prior to that time, but they wanted to once again refocus on the decline and the end of the Aryan nations, and that was another opportunity for us to
An end of an era.
Yeah, rediscuss that process.
Then we moved to the year 2000. Excuse me, we have one more thing in 2004. Come in 2005, Lucy Lipinski on our board. She is the mother of our newsletter, and it's our tie to our people. Tell us about that.
It definitely is the best tool for communicating with our many dedicated members of the task force, to give them information about times when we will gather together as a larger group, or if we have a call to action that we need them to respond to, we can communicate with them in that way. So it's been a great tool for many years, and it's a joy to put together.
We thank you for doing it, and it was all kind of stories about human rights and things we're doing and how they can contact us. Then also, as we moved to the year 2005, we had our 20th Dr. Martin Luther King Children's Program, and that went well with Living Voices out of Seattle. Then that was followed by another gala event, and for lack of time, Lucy, we probably won't go into that, but again, here comes Deanna Gissel in 2005 with her gala event, and how wonderfully that went, and not only the great social get-together, but fundraising for the task force. And then, Norm Gissel, you did something called Aryans Have No Home in North Idaho. Could you tell us about that briefly?
Right. It was what we had learned in all of our lessons here was that the Nazis had to be dealt with, and they had to be addressed, and they had to be opposed. And was our conclusion that with our successes here, that the Nazis had no homeland in Idaho. And in fact, as we've seen, they have no homeland anywhere in the United States. And so that's their predicament right now.
Then we moved to the 8th Annual Human Rights Banquet, which was held in the spring of 2005. And our speaker was from Seattle this time, and she's a delightful lady, Debbie Bird. We always have a keynote speaker, and we're going to show a little excerpt from her speech at the banquet.
This is the message that I came to talk to you about. This is the gift given to each of you. Each one of you today can look at your life and see the opportunities that are there for you to make a difference in your neighborhood. Your community is rich with a sense of family and love. I felt it when I walked in the door. Your community has fought and won against a powerful hate group, the Aryan Nation. Idaho has passed some of the strongest anti-harassment laws. You're building a human rights center to welcome everybody and document the legacy that you've already lived the first 30 years and the continued struggles that will be carried on by the youth. This community is striving to be different. You have demonstrated it by holding these forums for the last 35 years. This community welcomes change and values individuals who give back and make this place a better place to live. I have been given this day to use as I will. I can waste it or use it for good. What I do today is important because I'm exchanging a day of my life for it. So, I give you this day. I give you me. I've shared with you my truth. Please let it help you make this world a better place. Please take it with you every day that you see someone that does not look like you and embrace them with the love and the truth that you would want for your children. And I thank you for this opportunity.
Miss Bird is a wonderful speaker, and she energized everyone. And when she spoke 35 years, she was speaking of the North Idaho College Popcorn Forum Lecture Series, and he's had a good relationship with the task force over the last 25 years. We welcome Joanne Harvey. Joanne is our vice president of the task force and has been there for many, many years, and she's a teacher in the school district. And one of her great projects every year is the North Idaho Fair. This year, over 80,000 people attended the fair, and she organized that, and it's for Wednesday through Sunday is our open window to talk to the people, not only in North Idaho, but from Spokane and other places. Joanne, thank you, and tell us about what we do with that program.
Well, the fair is a wonderful thing. It's in the end of summer, and we, of course, have a collective captured audience at that time because of all the people that attend the fair, especially children, especially all of the newcomers that have moved here. So it's an opportunity for us to get our word out of what we do and how we fully believe in the equality of all people and exactly what the task force is about.
Joanne, you have so many wonderful people coming by, and you have great conversation. You tell them about the task force and your volunteers, your workers, and a lot of children. But occasionally you have challenging moments. There are a few people come by, not many, but they are not in agreement with our work in human rights.
Well, that's true, Tony. You know, there's many times when we have had people come and confront us or ask why we are trying to promote human rights or human relations, and there seems to be that segment of the population that does disagree with us. But we found that that's an opportunity to engage them in conversation and to perhaps maybe even be able to change some minds and hearts, and that's what we do. And certainly it isn't just my project. We have so many volunteers, and they're wonderful. And they're not only youth. I have a lot of children that volunteer in the booth. We have people, senior citizens. We have all ages. And so it's just a great opportunity for people to promote our work.
One final question to you, and that is, there's so many things going on, and you have all these projects for the children. Now, the bottom line is what, and it's very significant, what do you think is the most lasting thing for us doing that every year?
Well, I believe that we have to change minds beginning very young. And we always have projects for children, and it deals with culture and with acceptance. and with responsibility in relations to human rights and how to treat each other. And many children come in that booth, and they learn about a different culture each time. And I think that we have an opportunity, a golden opportunity to work with children, and that's one of the things besides their parents. We engage the child, and when the child is there, the parents have to stay and listen and talk with us. So it really does help to have kids there.
Thank you for what you do. It's greatly appreciated. And Father Roger, we're coming back to you, something we haven't dealt with much on these programs, but it's a vital part of our service. In fact, it's a reason that we organized the beginning is we have a victim support committee, and you're the chair of that committee. And people can talk with you privately, or we can help them like with the Keenans, what Norm Gissel did. Tell us about the Victim Support Committee that you chair.
Well, we're available at, sometimes we hear things, the newspaper or media, sometimes it comes across by a phone call or a third person. And I think more than anything, the most important thing we can say for the people is, how can we help you? We're here. If we can give you, push you into legal advice, or support from the community, support from if necessary, for safety and well-being, we can push you into that direction, and we can maybe just on a pastoral point of view is just, all right, it's more than just holding hands. It's there to support them as they go through this very difficult time in their life. I can remember a woman who was just being harassed horrifically by her husband because of her belief in the equality of human beings. And she was just scared to death of the man. Yeah. And just trying to be there for her.
She needed that support.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. We thank you for sharing that. A lot of that work's done behind the scenes, and it's extremely important. Ladies and gentlemen, in our first 9 programs, this series has been all about starting in early 1981 in February, going till today, the work of the Kootenai County Task Force on Human Relations. We're going to do one more program, but our wonderful friends on the board will not be here. They've told the story of the 25 years, and we're going to bring in some non-board members and even people who are not members of the task force to review these 25 years. I particularly want to invite reporters who have followed us for 25 years and get their evaluation of why this has been successful and why the people have rallied, not just in Kootenai County, but throughout the inland Northwest, and in some cases throughout the Northwest and the United States. So we hope you'll be with us for that final program next week. Until then, please have a good week. I am Tony Stewart.
Recorded on the campus of North Idaho College, Public Forum is the longest-running in-house college production on PBS. Each episode is pre-recorded live and is an educational outreach from North Idaho College. Please join us at this same time next week for another edition of Public Forum on this public television station.